Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda. It is November 1st, which means it's time to look back and see how my October went. I have all my stats up here on my laptop, so I'm going to be doing that. Sorry, it's just the way it is. I didn't want to print it out. It was a thing. Anyway, also, my camera's crooked. Hold on a sec. There we go. So October and November are probably my two favorite reading months. So October was Victober and spooky season. So I had a really good reading month, mostly because of spooky season. And I'll get why. I'm not dissing Victober in any way, shape, or form, but I will address it briefly as I go into this. But this month I did finish 18 books. I did have one DNF, and I want to put a little asterisk by that DNF. What it was, which was Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney, doesn't really matter because it wasn't about the book. I picked it up yesterday, actually, in fact, and I started reading it, and I got like a chapter in, and I said, I think I'm done with thriller books for right now. It had nothing to do with the book. It just was like, I know yesterday was still October. It was October 31st. It was Halloween, but my mind was already in November. So that was yet technically a DNF, but it's more of an NRN, a not right now. Had nothing whatsoever to do with the book. My average rating for this month was 3.5, which is, B+. It's fine. So let me go through the 18 books that I read and the stats on them. As for format, I had 8 books that were in print, 6 ebooks, both on my Kobo and my Kindle. I use both. It's a thing. I had 3 audiobooks, which is a lot for me, but 2 of them were actually really short. And then I had one that was multiple formats. That was Tightrope. And I had started that. That was a library book. And I had started it digitally. And then my hold for the physical copy came in. So I switched, but I switched at that point. So it was both ebook and physical book. And then the genres for this month. Unsurprisingly, my most commonly read genre was horror. And 7 of my 18 books were horror novels. I do enjoy horror. I do read it all year long, but October is spooky season. Then I had, it's labeled general fiction, but it's actually short story collections. I had 3 that I finished, and I will be going through them. If you just start joining in, I read a lot of short stories. I have a pile. I did short story September, and I'm still doing it because I have these collections to finish, but I enjoyed it so much that I'm kind of just continuing it on. So I have like a collection of collections that I kind of rotate through. So 3 of them I finished. I had 2 thrillers and 2 mysteries, 1 speculative fiction, 1 fantasy, 1 romance. And that's kind of loosely, I call it a romance because it really is a romance, but it's probably like if you were to go to a bookstore, you wouldn't find it in the romance section, but I will get to that. And 1 current event nonfiction. So now I will go through the books that I read. And as usual, I will go from lowest grade to high grade. I do star ratings, but I think of things in terms of letter grades. So I give a letter grade and then there's a star value attached to that. So I don't think in terms of 3 stars, 4 stars, whatever. These are letter grades. I had 2 books that got C's. The first one was The Daughters of Block Island by Christa Carmen. This was a NetGalley read. It was trying really hard to be a Gothic novel, and because it kept telling me it was a Gothic novel, but it wasn't really Gothic, and I thought the heroine was really stupid. So there's that one. The next one was Children of the Hill by Jennifer McMahon, and I just finished this one recently, and I haven't talked about it really in a weekly wrap-up, and I don't want to repeat myself. So I will talk more in depth about it in my weekly wrap-up, but just to say it was a book that didn't work. I think it had a great premise and it didn't live up to it. And I will go into more detail on that on I film it on Friday, but it's actually Saturday. You'll see it on Saturday video. And then I had 2 books that I gave C+ to. The first was Tightrope, Americans Reaching for Hope by Nicholas D. Kristof and Sheryl Wudunn. And I'm not going to say much about this book because Lord knows I said a lot about this book when I was reading it. I had a lot of feelings about this book. The only thing that I would add to those feelings is that my book club had like the same feelings, so I didn't feel weird. Like I was like out yelling into the void with my feelings. We all felt that way about this book. So there you go. That was very reassuring to me. And the other one, my second C+ book was, this is the one that I call a romance, but it is a romance. I would call it a romance, but you wouldn't find it in a bookstore under romance. And that's Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Canas. You'd probably find this under horror. I think it's supposed to be a horror novel with romantic elements. Instead, it's a romance novel with horror elements. And even as a romance, I think that there are problems with it. I don't think it operates well as a romance. I really liked Isabel Cañas's first book, The Hacienda, and I do like her writing. So I'm just going to assume this one's sophomore slump. It didn't really work for me. And then I had 3 books that I gave a B to, and B's not bad. The first one was The Whistling by Rebecca Netley. This is a gothic novel. This is a very gothic novel. It's a haunted house. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a little predictable at points, and I thought it went a little off the deep end a couple times. So, I would say it's a good novel. It's just it's rough around the edges. That's probably what I would say about this one. It was a great October read though. So next October, if you're looking for something, this is not a bad choice. And that's The Whistling by Rebecca Netley. And then this is my first of short story collections, and I did have it, but I don't have it anymore in my house. And that's Life Ceremony by Sayaka Murata. I got this one out of my house. It's in a little free library. I'm really torn on this one because there were stories in there that I really liked, and there were stories in there that, were really weird. And it's not that if it was weird, I didn't like it, because there were weird stories I did like. And then there were weird stories that were just weird, and I couldn't make sense of it. And Sayaka Murata, I have just decided I enjoyed Convenience Store Woman, but I just think that's an exception. I think she's probably not an author for me. She's probably great if you're really used to modern Japanese literature. And that's something that I read, but I don't read a lot of. So it might just have been a cultural thing, but man, some of those I was like, whoa, what? And the weirdest thing was, I knew there would be cannibalism in this book, and I strangely was not bothered by the cannibalism. It was other stuff that I found weird. Not that cannibalism is okay. I'm just saying that the story that featured the cannibalism did so in a way that didn't strike me as, oh my gosh, what's going on? I could understand the point she was making. And then the third book that I gave a B to was The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, which I listened to on audio. Maybe I'm a little bit generous with a B on this one. I read it because I had planned to read The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, and I still plan to read it. I think just because I made the realization when I started Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney, I made the realization that I need a break from thrillers and horrors and things like that because I read so much of it. Probably won't read it right away. But I do now have The Turn of the Screw under my belt, and I'm ready to go with it. Henry James is not an author for me. It's fine. It just is what it is. I can now say that I've read it, and I did it on audio, which is probably good because I don't think that I would have gotten through it had I tried to read it. Okay, I had one book that I gave a B+ to, and that is Evergreen by Naomi Hirahara. This is a mystery. It is the sequel to her earlier book, Clark and Division, and it follows Aki and her family, which has grown a bit. They have returned. It's after World War II. In the first book, they were in an internment camp, and then they were sent to Chicago, which is not where they were from. And things happened. Read Clark and Division. It's a great book. In this one, they have returned to Los Angeles, which is the city they were from. So a lot of it, and the parts that I really liked about it, were the rebuilding of the Japanese American community that had pretty much been obliterated during World War II in the internment camps, rebuilding that community in Los Angeles, and what, the Japanese Americans who returned to Los Angeles, what they found and what they had to do to find their footing again. I really enjoyed that part of it. I just felt that the mystery wasn't as strong, and I didn't care as much about the mystery as I did in Clark and Division. So this is kind of a weird comparison thing. I gave it a B+, but Clark and Division is I think it's a 5-star book for me. The first time I read it, I think I gave it a 5-star, and if I did anything, I lowered it to an A+. But this is part of it's why it's a B+ and maybe not an A, is a little bit of comparison, because it's a good book. It just isn't as good as Clark and Division, if that makes any sense. Okay, then I had 6 books that I gave an A to. The first was The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks-Dalton. This is a climate fiction, speculative fiction, about a girl named Wanda who happens to be born. Takes place in Florida. She's born during a hurricane, Hurricane Wanda. Things happen to her family during that hurricane, and we follow her through her life in different chunks. And I really enjoyed it. It's, a climate fiction when done well is fantastic. My only complaint with this book is when you went from one phase of her life to the next, I always wanted to know what happened in between. I wanted to see the process of where we got from point A to point B in the breakdown of society. But the book probably would have been 800 pages long if she included all that. So, there you go. Still really enjoyed it. And then I had my very first Grady Hendrix book. So far, my only Grady Hendrix book, which is my best friend's Exorcism. Apparently, a lot of people don't like this book. I did like it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Great 80s nostalgia. And fantastic depiction of friendship. And I did a book to adaptation video about it that hopefully I'll remember to link down below. Don't see the adaptation. It's not good. It's on Amazon Prime, but it's not good. Just read the book. And then I had What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, which is a retelling of Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. And this is why I read Turn of the Screw, because I read What Kills the Dead, and then I read Fall of the House of Usher, which is also an A book. I gave them both A's. And I think that the impact of the Fall of the House of Usher would have been greater to me had I read that one first, because I think the impact of What Moves the Dead was going to be there no matter what. But because it is a retelling, and it's a pretty detailed, pretty close retelling, it kind of took some of the oomph away from Fall of the House of Usher when I did that one. So I'm not blaming anything. I'm just saying it's really good. If you like Fall of the House of Usher, you will like What Moves the Dead. Lots of spores. So if you have problems with fungus, just so you know, there's a lot of fungus in this book. But if you haven't read Fall of the House of Usher, read that first and then read What Moves the Dead. It's not that it will help you understand what moves the dead. It's that you will get the impact of Fall of the House of Usher, which you won't get if you read it after you read What Moves the Dead. Okay. So I did What Moves the Dead, Fall of the House of Usher. And then I had None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, which I listened to on audio. Highly recommend this one on audio. It does have a podcast element, which is one of the reasons why it's so good on audio. It technically has 2 main narrators, but it's really a full cast narration. Works really well. It was a fun thriller. It wasn't completely perfect. I felt like the end lost a little oomph, but overall, really enjoyed it. It was fun. And that's what I want from thrillers. And then finally, I have another short story collection that I gave an A to, and that's Hateship, Friendship, Courtship, Loveship, Marriage. This is the first Alice Munro I have ever read, and I really enjoyed it. Alice Munro is fantastic. I mean, she's really heightens the art of the short story. Her short stories are so well done, and they challenge me. This is one I have to read again. I do have to read again because I know with every single story, I didn't get every bit out of it. And so I will be reading this one again. Now, I got this copy out of a little free library. I'm putting it on my keeper shelf for now, but it's not in great condition. So if I get a better condition copy of it, I'm going to get it and put this back in a little free library just because. Plus, I got Runaway and the other, I can't remember the title. I got 2 more Alice Munro short story collections that have covers in the same style when I went to the library books sale, which I'm going to after I finish this video because it's November now. And if I could get, I do know there's an edition of this that's in the same style. Even though I'm not a huge cover person, it would be nice to have all 3 of those in the same style. So that was A, and now we go on to A+. Okay, so the first A+ was The Last Remains by Elly Griffiths. This is the final, for now, book in the Ruth Galloway series. Admittedly, this A+ is part for the book, part for the whole series. If I were to just look at this book, probably on its own would not get an A+. A lot of it is that it tied the entire series together very, very well. It was a satisfying ending, and I think, maybe the mystery might not have been as compelling on its own, but the other elements of this book were what made it so good. So if you have read books 1 through 14, definitely read The Last Remains. Okay, and then I had The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I loved this. I love this novella. It's dark fantasy. I guess it would be called dark fantasy. I would put it more under horror, although the part of it that really got my adrenaline going. I wouldn't say it scared me because I didn't feel scared. I just felt like, the adrenaline. That's what I felt, was something that was not actually supernatural. It was something else. And just this book, it's got a fairy tale element. It's got a mythic element. It is so wonderful. Earlier this month, I did the Stephen King tag. If I remember, I'll link it down below. I have a habit of forgetting to put those links in there, but it's down below. And I had said Stephen King is an author that I really do respect, even though I don't read a lot of his. And I had thought of Neil Gaiman in the same way, but I really shouldn't, because, and this is not in any way a detraction in my mind against Stephen King, but Stephen King is an author who knows what he can do and does it really well. Like, he knows his lane. And I even hate that, stay in your lane. I hate that metaphor, but it works here. He knows what he writes. And there's a lot of variation in that area of what he writes, but he knows it and he stays in it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But Neil Gaiman is not afraid to experiment. And so when I read Neil Gaiman books, I don't know what I'm going to get. And I really love The Ocean at the End of the Lane. It is a book that kind of has a child narrator, but it is not a book for children. It's really a book that needs to be read by adults. There's nothing that, say, a young adult, I would say probably younger than a young adult, I probably wouldn't give it to him, but young adult, I mean, it depends how mature they are. But it was really good. I enjoyed The Ocean at the End of the Lane. And then I did do a video review of this one, which, if I remember, will be linked below. And that is The Gingerbread Men by Joanna Corrins. I loved this book. I love the ending of it. This is a gothic horror, technically, but more gothic fairy tale is a better descriptor of it. Perfect for spooky season, but also perfect for Christmas. So you still have time to read this book because it's still in season. Really enjoyed this one. It felt like I was being told a fairy tale is probably the best way to put it. It is not, it is not intended to be, and it is not scary. It is also not gory, but it is eerie and suspenseful. So if you're someone who doesn't like horror because you don't like the scariness or you don't like the goriness, this one will be fine for you. And then the final book that I gave an A+ to was my final short story collection that I finished this month, The Angel of Rome by Jess Walter. I love Jess Walter. It's official. I love the guy. I've always liked him. The first book of his I read was Beautiful Ruins, and I have not read his entire backlist. I need to actually go in and look, see if I can maybe I can find some of his books at the book sale today. I read Beautiful Ruins. I read The Cold Millions. So The Cold Millions, I read the description and I'm like, labor unions in Spokane. And I'm like, no, I don't want to read this book, but I read it anyway. And I finished the last page, put it down, and started looking for real estate in Spokane. It was amazingly good. So these are his short stories. Loved him. Just loved them. They're in a different class than, say, Alice Munro. But that's okay because Jess Walter is trying to do something different in his short stories than what Alice Munro is doing. And so it's okay. It's okay. But I really enjoyed these. And there were some short stories in here that just really kind of, to me. So Angel of Rome by Jess Walter. So read-alongs and events in October. So spooky season was represented in my books. The other one was Victober. I am still reading the group read. I am still reading The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope. I got behind, and instead of really pushing myself to try to catch up to the schedule, I decided to just take it in stride and finish it when I finish it. So right now, basically, I'm reading it half an hour a day, and I will probably finish it the first half of November. But I enjoyed doing Victober. I do think that I'm going to approach Victober differently next year. This was my first year doing it, so, learning. But I do think I'm going to, I don't know how, but I think I am going to approach it differently. We'll see. Now, my stats. I do this every month, just kind of let you know where I am as far as reading in general and my own TBR. Reading in general, my goal for the year is 144 books. I am at 159, so blew that one out of the water. Now the question is just like, by how much am I blowing it out of the water? And this will help me decide what to set my goal at for next year, because I'm still trying to find that number. Ideally, I want to have a reading goal that if I'm just reading at my normal pace, I will meet that reading goal in the second half of December. I met this reading goal the beginning of October. So I'm still trying to find that magic number. And of course it's hard because you're reading different books every year. But what my plan is now is to see how many books I end up reading in 2023, and then finding the difference between that number and 144 and setting that as my goal, because I'm just trying to find the right number. Okay, now for my own TBR. Now, these are books that I do own that are on my TBR. I am doing my TBR differently now. I am moving my unowned TBR into Libby. I have a bazillion tags on Libby, so I tag them under, I give them the year that I add them, the recommendation source, and then the genre, so that on my spreadsheet that I keep online, and then also on Goodreads, I'm working on fixing this on Goodreads, it's only books that I own. I had a goal, not even coming, this is impossible for me to meet the goal at this point, so we're not even going to worry about it. But I will tell you that my owned TBR count, and that includes print books, digital books, and audiobooks, is 836 books. And that is up 10 from last month and up 26 from January 1st. I am going to change my TBR goal, my owned TBR goal for 2024. So we'll talk about that later in the year. Now, as for print books, I own 230 print books that I have not read. And that's up 13 from last month. It will probably be up next month because library book sale. And then, but now for ebooks, I own 525 ebooks that I haven't read, which is actually down 5 from last month. And that's down 2 on Kindle and down 3 on Kobo. So I'm going the right direction with my ebooks. And most of that's because I generally don't buy ebooks at this point anymore. Obviously I did, because it's very easy to get a large backlog of ebooks when they are 99 cents, $1.99, $2.99. And I fell into that trap. So there's that. Now, I generally don't buy ebooks. If I buy, I'm not saying I don't ever, but I generally don't. I think I have one pre-order out for an ebook right now for a book that comes out next summer. I will, in 2024, I am planning to do a reread of Les Miserables, a year-long reread, because there's 365 chapters. I do have a print book of it, but I'm going to get an ebook of it. So it's not going to count on my TBR because I already own the print book to read it on that. So I really don't, at this point, I generally don't buy ebooks. I generally get my library books as ebooks now. Not always, but sometimes. For example, I have a book now that I'm waiting on. I have 2 books that are coming in that are going to be in print. One, because actually I don't think either one of them were available on ebook, or they were available on ebook, but I couldn't put a hold on them for when I needed them, if that makes any sense. Anyway, so that's why my ebook number is going down and my print book's going up. So there you go. It is what it is, and it's just going to get worse for the end of the rest of this year. We're not even going to worry about it for the rest of this year. Right now, I'm just doing the practice of tracking it. So there you go. I have jabbered on for almost 25 minutes. according to my little clock. And so I'm going to end this now. I'll give you my usual like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Feel free to join my Discord. Information's down below. Discord's just a really easy way to have conversations with other people. It's easier than doing it in the comments on YouTube. And some of my things that I will be doing in January, we'll be starting in 2024, will be kind of handled through Discord. Just a little spoiler there. But anyway, thank you very much. I am off to the library book sale, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.